All right, this is Tim Kaine thinking what if in detail.
Hi everyone, it's me, Tim.
Hi, Tim.
Today I want to talk about
Happy
a
Tuesday, Tim.
technique I call thinking what if in detail.
Yeah, what do you mean by this?
This is primarily for setting designers out there
Okay.
because remember I said the order I like design to go in is setting followed by story followed by system mechanics. And this is
And I've kind of been the opposite before. I like to make mechanics. We have a video on this. I don't know if we uploaded it separately, but we mentioned in that video that I have developed Colden Chronicles the opposite way. And I think that I'm seeing why that was a bad idea. It's easy for me to create systems. It's a bit more challenging for me to fit to create the world. And I think creating an interesting world and then fitting mechanics into that is probably the better idea, which is what Tim, argued for. So, lesson learned, I guess.
this is a technique that I use
You're
to
right, True Nightmare Will.
come up with new settings. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But what I want to start with is this came because I was looking at my notes, like I'm always doing, and there was a note about a lunch meeting at Troika. It wasn't an official meeting. It was a bunch of us were sitting around. I think it was during Temple. A bunch of us were sitting around eating lunch, and someone had brought up trying to guess what people from a century ago would be amazed at. And things were coming up like,
It's a good question.
cars, although cars have been around kind of for at least a century now. But more things
Old.
like all the appliances we have, washers, dryers, refrigerators, the fact that we can have ice whenever we want,
I think understanding of science
the
too.
fact that travel is a lot easier and more common. So we were talking about all these things. And then I flipped it around and said, what would people a century from now be grossed out, be shocked at how we live now? And people were throwing out
That's a good
things
one.
like, you know, what kind of jobs we had or that we worked 40 hours a week or things. And I said, I think they're going to be grossed out that we rewore clothes.
Really?
And so he went, well, we can wash them. And I'm like, that's not what I mean. This is my what if scenario. Because this is back in the early 2000s. And the idea of 3D printers, we're still kind of like, we're figuring that out. And I said, what if generic like replicators from Star Trek are never possible? But one thing that is possible are clothing printers. And I said, and
Holy
here's how I imagine they'd work. You have this machine in your house. It's probably small, maybe it's built into the wall. It's got a little screen on it. It has tons of selections for fabric types, for patterns, for colors, for styles. And these are just all options you pick. It also has your exact measurements. Maybe you entered it, or maybe you just stand in front of it, maybe naked, and it scans you. So it knows exactly what your measurements are.
Oh, and then of course, because it's the future, right? It's going to upload all of that scanned data to some server for some country to use. So now everybody's naked pictures that's being used for this 3D printing machine is somewhere on the web, and it gets hacked, of course, like everything does. And now everybody's naked body just T posing for this machine is available on the dark web.
So it doesn't matter if you gain weight or go to the gym and change your body shape. It always knows exactly how to make clothes that fit you. And I imagined it would work like this. You wake up in the morning and you decide, this is what I want to wear today. Boop, 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 print. Now, maybe it's not instant. Maybe it takes 5 or 10 minutes.
You have to choose because think of like of the shirts right now, right? Like some graphic on them, right? Imagine choosing the latest memes to have printed on your custom shirt. Like, oh, let's scroll future Twitter or whatever the fuck is being used for the latest memes. Oh, let's print that one. Yeah.
So you have a cup of coffee or you take a shower. But when you're done, there are fresh, clean, wrinkle free clothes that fit you perfectly. Now, again, and then I started running with this and thinking, what were all the things that this might run to? First of all, stores. I don't know if stores would still exist, but if they did, there may be industrial ones that could print in seconds. So don't think that this few minutes to get clothes is a restriction. It may just be that's how home ones work. Also, you don't need You don't need an iron because your clothes are always freshly made, but you also don't need washers or dryers because every night you just take your clothes, throw it in some hamper, and that hamper recycles the material and flushes away any dirt that you accumulated. Now, let's talk about all the effects this would have. What would society be like with just this one change? Imagine nothing else. Clothes printers are common. Well, first of all, the personal effects on you would be amazing. You would never have to wear the same clothes twice. And once you wore something and somebody said, hey, you look really good in that style, that pattern, that color, you have infinite variations. You don't have to keep wearing that same yellow flower shirt, but you can have tons of yellow flower shirts that you can wear all the time.
I think you would almost, it would become like really modular, so you would be able to buy different materials in like raw form. For instance, like denim versus wool. And then you'd buy cartridges like for a printer for different like ink colors. And you would have to refill these. So you wouldn't have stores selling clothes, but you would have stores that sell, or if there are still stores at that point in the future, at some point in the future, but you would be able to, you would have to refill it with those different things. So if you were wearing denim a lot, you would have to probably refill your denim material cartridge often.
It also means you're never going to run
Or
into
you recycle the old denim and it reuses that, so you only really need to get one bit of each.
somebody wearing the exact same thing. You're not gonna be walking down the
They're
street.
both made from
going, oh
cotton. I
shit,
didn't
that
know
person
that.
has the exact same clothes because the
I did
number
not
of
know that.
options available are just going to be huge. The chance of somebody picking the exact same color and pattern and style and fabric is just probably going to be minute. Your clothes will always fit you flawlessly. If you've ever had clothes tailored and you know how nicely they fit
That's
you,
just an excuse for
all your
people to be
clothes will fit
fat,
that
though,
way.
because now it's not, I need to lose weight so that I can fit into the clothes and I don't have to buy new clothes. It's now, I don't need to lose weight because I will fit into whatever clothes is being printed that day.
Especially if you're one of these people, and I've been that person multiple times in my life, where I'm in between two off the rack sizes. So for a while, I was between
Oh,
large
yeah,
and
yeah.
XL.
Yeah.
So I had to buy
It's
XL.
annoying.
If it was long sleeve, I had to buy XL to get the sleeve length. But then it'd be really baggy on me. Then I gained a little weight, and XL fit perfectly. Now I'm moving back towards large, especially on a short sleeve shirt. Maybe I should just buy a large and not an extra large. Baggy would mean if you're wearing baggy clothes, that's because you picked it as a style. You wanted a baggy shirt. You're not forced to wear a baggy shirt just because you buy clothes off the rack and it's made for like 3 or 4 different generic.
Another one is for cross dressers. If you wanted to see how women's clothing felt on you, you could print it, try it, and then just recycle it. Come on, Who doesn't want to try women's panties on? Don't clip this, by the way. Don't do
Body
it.
shapes. Clothing repair would probably be unheard of. Needle, thread, sewing machines. Nobody has those anymore. Now,
Yeah,
think about
and you wouldn't have to repair clothing. Yeah, you just, oh, I got a hole in this one. Let me quickly recycle this and reprint from the history of printed clothes for the day.
at your house and think of the architecture and appliances that now you no longer need. Your house probably has closets, chest of drawers, armoires, furniture that is just designed to organize and store clothing. Your washer and dryer gone. There may be a specific room in
That's
your
true.
house
It
with
opens up a lot
special
of space.
hookups for washer and dryer gone. Or you may live in an apartment building and there's a special room in that apartment building that holds washers and dryers, and you have to wait in line and wait for your clothes to be done and assign a special night of the week or every 2 weeks where you're just doing laundry. That's all gone. Future people don't understand that, and when they hear about it, they're like, it's like you thinking 100 years ago people didn't used to brush their teeth. Ugh. Now,
You're supposed to brush your teeth.
it's interesting
Kidding.
that if you can extend this to think that would there be clothing stores? Because I mentioned earlier, maybe there'd be industrial printers that would give you clothes in seconds rather than minutes.
I mean, if we assume that this is readily available, at least I can. I bet there is a transitional period, right, where everybody living in the West has access to certain things that only the elite originally had access to. So, if you want to I think if you want to make an interesting world, you kind of focus on these transitional periods, right? Where the really rich have access to things that make life easier, but the poorer classes would still have to like buy clothing and sell it, right? And so you would have almost like this this blockbuster period, right, where a lot of people were streaming movies from Netflix, but the people who couldn't really afford that or didn't have access to Netflix when it was being shipped to your house, they still went to the blockbuster stores, right? So I could see this transitional period where clothing stores would still exist, but they would be slowly phased out. Kind of like how malls are getting phased out now that online shopping is becoming more prevalent. Although I still like shopping in malls sometimes. You know, it's an experience. It's a day. You make a day out of going to the mall.
They might be
The
gone,
social
or
experience.
there might be boutiques that sell patterns that you can't purchase online. So you go in and you purchase one day, because remember, this clothing is disposable, and also you don't really have a way of cleaning it, nor would you want to. In the future, person would be grossed out by wearing the same shirt or even underwear twice. Bleh. So you go into the store, you buy a one use same day shirt. Maybe it's a special pattern. Maybe you need a tuxedo and you haven't bought a tuxedo pattern for your home printer, or maybe it's too complicated for your home printer. So you're going to a wedding, you go buy a tuxedo at a store for a wedding.
I can also see cases. Okay, there's a lot of cases I can think of. This is a really good one that he brings up. I think hand tailored clothes will still have fashion statements, but they will be more expensive because tailors will become less common. So as tailors become less common, their services become more expensive, but people will do it for luxury purposes. I also think that you will still have clothing designers who sell their patterns or their clothes as part of a like an upgrade that you can purchase from the machine itself, because of course if it's going to exist in the future, I promise you they're going to find a way to monetize the fuck out of it. Selling patterns and colors will 100% become a way that they monetize this, and luxury fashion designers will find a way to sell you the best patterns or best clothes so that you can still appear, because clothing is a fashion statement, right? We dress ourselves up as a way to indicate how much status we have, and that will still exist. It will be sold through this device, whereas now it's sold through the stores. When you go to Abercrombie or something and you buy that, they always show that it's Abercrombie because they want you to show it's a fashion statement. And so fashion statements will still exist in this world. It will just be monetized through the device.
Or maybe it's for one use things. Like you went to work in the morning and it was nice and sunny, and when you leave at night, it's raining. You duck into a little store, print a raincoat, wear it home, throw it into your hamper when you get home.
Yeah, like service points.
This also made me wonder, there might still be vintage clothing stores out there,
Mm-hmm.
but they're probably for the wealthy, because old style clothes is probably rare, so it's expensive. But owning it means you now have to have a way of washing it, of repairing it, and probably only the wealthy could have that. But there's even more. I mean,
Or during the transitional period, only the poor have that because they can't afford the new service. But yeah, if, at a certain point, once it becomes natural, he's right. Then it would flip. It would become a thing of the past. And I think there are other examples of that where certain items that we have nowadays are that are really expensive were really cheap. They were like considered like peasant things, and then vice versa. What's a good example of that? I think there's some foods. The price of used panties would also go up. God damn it, shut the fuck up. You're right, but shut the fuck up.
Touch the iceberg of what society would be like with clothing printers. Think about traveling. Think about when you see.
Oh yeah, lobster. Like, yeah, that's a good one. Lobster was like, oh, that's just that's it exists here and you buy it. Yeah, but now it's a thing of, I think too, like animal pelts, like having a wolf pelt coat, having mink, right? I mean, these some of these things were still considered very luxury, but now they're even worse because they were either hunted to near extinction or they're endangered, so you have to ethically source them. Yeah, yeah. Considered prison food. Fuck, I wanted to go to I want to go to prison in the past then. No, I don't.
people at airports or train stations and they have luggage. That's because that luggage is full of clothing.
It's
You
true.
don't need
Saves
that.
a lot of space.
Most of the places you stay, most of the hotels would probably have in the hotel room a clothing printer. Or if not, all those one-off stores exist where you could just go the night before and print out what clothes you want to wear the next day and
That's
throw
true.
them on a chair in your hotel room, and it's waiting for you there in the morning. So traveling would be wildly different. You wouldn't see people lugging stuff around. Traveling would be even more easy than it is now. And without luggage, there's no check-in, there's no overhead bins, there's no wheelie carts. It's all gone. These people would probably look back on us as incredibly primitive people, thinking of all the things our society to do, architecture, furniture, just to have clothing, which they think of as this is just something that is created on the fly for me. Now, it's trivial to extend this idea to other things. Food is the obvious one. If there were food printers, you wouldn't need a kitchen, a pantry.
Soylent Green. Oh no, if anybody has seen the movie Soylent Green, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen the movie Soylent Green, go watch Soylent Green.
All those big appliances, ovens, refrigerators, instant pot, you don't need them anymore. You can print out whatever you want whenever you want. And you may not even need, well, you wouldn't need pots and pans anymore because you don't have anything to use them in. Tupperware, all that stuff would be gone. But maybe you don't even need plates and cutlery. Maybe the food printer can print out something for the food to be on. Even if, like, it's an inedible food substrate, like maybe it's just a bamboo plate and a bamboo fork, and then it's organic like the food, but not, you don't think of eating it, and then the whole thing just goes back when you're done. The whole thing goes back into the food printer hamper and gets recycled. I don't want to think about.
Yeah, you put the you put your poop in the food printer, and that's how it recycles. Oh no, no, hold on. That's not how it should work.
Other things that might get recycled into food. So let's move on.
Exactly.
Would grocery stores still exist? Maybe. Maybe it's this farmer's market. Maybe it's local produce for foodies who are like, I'd rather have a real apple than a printed apple. Would restaurants exist? Same thing. Maybe restaurants would have, like the one-off stores, maybe there are recipes that aren't public. So if you want a particular, lasagna, you have to go to this one Italian restaurant because they don't sell their recipe. Or maybe it's stuff that food printers don't work well on. Maybe like fish in general doesn't work well from a food printer. So there's a lot of sushi bars still around because, especially raw fish, you can tell a printed raw fish. So people just go to sushi bars.
That's a cool idea for a universe where you I mean, and that's generally the point of this talk, right? Is that it's really great for brainstorming to say what if and to go down those rabbit holes. But it would be really cool to have like this futuristic kind of like maybe cyberpunk type kind of universe where you have the food printer, but it doesn't work for some foods. And so you still have those. Now, like sushi joints are the new McDonald's, right? Where everybody hangs out. Because the food printers are bland, but they're cheap enough that nobody really can compete to make old food again, but they don't work with sushi or with fish, so sushi still exists. Isn't Prey? Yeah, Prey, actually. You're right. Prey is kind of a world like that where things are recyclable. You're right. Which also is one of the reasons why that game is so good because it's such a good sandbox. It's very like System Shock, Deus Ex kind of gameplay.
If they want raw fish. So you can see you can take a lot of things and run with this. So designers, and particularly setting designers, this is when you should play what if with every game
Yes.
that you make. Think of a setting, think of a common setting, and then change one thing, just one thing in it, and think of all the ramifications that one change would have.
I mean, we're doing that with our game, right? I started with Golden Chronicles. I said, what if, in order to cast spells, you had to use life force? What if you have to, if we had this harvestable life force from living things that was used to cast spells, how would the magic system work? How would it be regulated? How would it be traded? How would it be harvested? Would there be people that use it for good reasons? Would there be people that have magical abilities but refuse to use life source sourced from humans and only from plants and animals? Are there You know, are there people that sacrifice their own life force to perform spells? You know, how does this work? How do we take this simple concept and jump into moral and ethical conundrums with it? And so yeah, I mean, we're doing it too with our game, and I think that he's right. It's a very, very good brainstorm lunch type topic where you're sitting with your friends, you're sitting with your coworkers, and saying, yeah, you know, what if we did this one thing? How would the rest of the universe look?
Just making up clothing printers or food printers got rid of rooms in your house, got rid of furniture, got rid of appliances, got rid of time people had to spend involved in all those things. Arcanum was such a game where we said, what if we took a standard Tolkien-esque fantasy world and said, what if an industrial revolution happened? What would change? And that's when we started thinking of all these things, not just, tech versus magic and what the pros and cons of those would be, but what all the different fantasy races would be involved in an industrial
Well,
revolution.
even the real world does this sometimes. I'll ask you this, and think if you can. I mean, you guys will know exactly what kind of points in history this has been done in. What if the same materials you use to make your currency now need to be used for ammunition? How does the currency market change because of that? And we ended up with years where we have coins made of silver because silver means fucking nothing when you have a war to fight across the world, where the nickel and the copper are way more important to use for defending ourselves.
What the effect of the industrial revolution would be on their lives. So that was a fun thing to do, and that's a good
Metro
technique for
Metro's a good
making a
example
setting.
too, yeah.
I just want you to
But I
realize
meant
that
real
when you're trying
world,
to come up
like with
a
World
new
War
setting,
II.
if you try to make everything new,
If you get coins, if you get nickels, I think pennies weren't silver. Pennies were something else. But I know for sure nickels, dimes, and quarters were made from silver for a few years in the U.S. or a silver alloy, and that's so that they could use the metal in making ammunition. I don't think I don't think pennies were silver though. Silver pennies. Maybe they were. The steel. Yeah, the steel cent from 1943. Yeah, coated with zinc. Low grade steel coated with zinc. Previously 95% copper based bronze. However, the silver quarter. Maybe they don't have them. Silver quarter production. Oh, this was in the 30s. Yeah, yeah. I still have a bunch of these at home. So it's pretty cool. I think those are like examples of real world scenarios where we had to change something so basic in mass in order to accommodate another aspect of life that we didn't anticipate on. But Metro is a good example too of a
then
fantasy
players
universe.
don't have a touchstone. They don't recognize it. I think it's a lot more fun when you want to come up with a setting is you think of something that your players can easily imagine and change something. Maybe it's near
Yes.
future and we just discovered warp drive. Maybe it's near future and aliens arrive. Maybe it's near future and we just discovered a way of copying brains into other brains. So now wealthy people live forever by buying young people, wiping their brain and copying their brain into it. Crazy. This is all setting. And this is where I think is the first point you take in the journey to making a good game. So you may want to try this technique. It's worked really well for me.
I agree. I 100% agree, and I think that the more thought you put into that and how the world is going to work based on that one or multiple unique things, players can feel that. Players can feel and really enjoy when you've thought about a universe and about the events and how they make sense. You know, if you take a look at Mass Effect has some great lore, especially with its factions and its races. And you can say, okay, we found. I think a good example would be the first Contact War with the, oh god, what were they called? What was Garrus? He was a Turian. You know, we discovered these Mass Effect drives with and came into conflict with the Turians, and we just immediately went warded with them because that's just kind of what both of our factions do really well. And there's still this residual um, kind of negative feelings that we have for each other because of the people that were lost and um, the death and the chaos that happened because of it. But that also was what sparked us to become such good allies, because we've already quarreled, and it didn't result in anything good for either of our species. Yeah, I mean, I agree with him completely. This is another great video by Tim Cain. If you want to like it and watch it yourself, here's the link. And we'll move on to the next one. So if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching that. Bye, YouTube.